Hi everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I wanted to show you how to make this really simple. It's very simple, but you could use it for almost any occasion whatsoever. Card that we made at Stamp Club this past weekend. So this is a really simple technique, and honestly, you could use lots of different things. What I did is just rounded two corners of each of these. It has two layers to it. So the corner rounder punch, if you still have it, you could use that. This is retired. I actually increased the size of these a little bit because it was a little bit harder to get into the detailed trio punch. So this one will make a hole if you're making tags. You make this little decorative punch, and it also has a corner rounder. So this is called the detailed trio punch, and it's number 146320 in my online store. But I found that the size of the squares that I used for these, it was a little bit tight to get it in, so I actually made it just a teeny bit bigger. This also, and I kind of want to explain this as we go along, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. This one was done with the, I believe it's the textured embossing folder. I think that's what it's called. It's not basket weave. I believe it's textured, but I will make note of it. All of the supplies, sorry, lost my words for a second. All the supplies to make this card will be listed below in the description here on YouTube, and any of the links if you click on it, will take you directly to my online store. So this is, oh, this doesn't have the number on it. I thought it would. This is a 3D embossing folder. So I just want to show you one other tip that I did. So I had at the class before last, one of my embossing folders was put through the wrong sandwich, and what ended up happening was it curled the die, or curled the folder. Now it does still work. However, what I did for this class, and this might be something that's useful to you if you happen to do classes or demonstrations. So what I did was for these, which these are the newer Stampin' Up folders. Now if you have the new embossing machine, you shouldn't have to have any problems with this. However, if you have the Big Shot machine, you will still need to be able to use your blue folder for this. So what I did is I went ahead and labeled the A on the blue plate and then A on the regular platform, and then I put an A on this. That way when they ran this through the die cut machine, they would know that you would have to use these three things together. And then the other thing I did, and I'm just trying to show you this, just might help you along if you are also, if you're just having issues with it in general, is I generally use one plate for the top, and I always put this one on the top. Now I might flip it over, but I always keep it as the top plate, unless you can see I cut things upside down once and forgot to flip it. And then I have a bottom plate. So this one I tend to use with my magnetic platform. Also, with keeping it flatter, it really helps you get much more control, so it actually will still stick where you put it. So again, this is for using the Big Shot machine if you still have that. So I labeled one for the bottom, and then I labeled one for the top. So that way when they put this in, they would know to put their paper down, put their die cut, put this one on top, and then go through. So that may or may not be helpful to you, but I figured I would share it anyway. So what I'm going to do today, I used this other folder, but I thought we could switch this up. So this is a very simple card to make. What makes it a little bit easier is I use the adhesive sheets for this birthday die cut to make it stick easier so you wouldn't get glue everywhere. So that was pretty simple. But I think I'm also going to change up the sentiment on this as well. So another thing that you could do, and I cut some of these ahead of time when I did my class because I had extras, is I had all these die cuts because I had some of the adhesive sheet left on a piece of paper. So I just kind of picked a couple things on the Forever Fern bundle. So you can see I ran this one through here. So I just kind of ran these through that way, and they do have an adhesive sheet on them, so all you have to do is pull them off and stick them. They're kind of like making stickers. And then I just ran it through with a couple pieces, and then I thought, what am I going to do with this? Because a lot of times I'll put these in here and they'll be loose and they'll kind of get crunched up. So I decided to put them into one of our clear envelopes. Now you can also purchase these in my online store. We use these a lot if we're doing swaps, basically to keep cards from getting stuck together. But they actually are able to be mailed because they are technically a clear envelope. It does have a little sticker strip on it. So you can find these in my online store as well. They're clear medium envelopes. They are 102619. I think this is one of the longest running things that we've had. And you do get, I believe it is 50? Yep, 50 in a pack. So they are very economical. And what I usually do is I'll put my cards in them. And you guys have seen me do this before. I'll put my cards in them. And then if I give this card away, I'll just reuse the envelope over again. But you can mail them in this as well. So if you wanted to do that, the only thing you would have to do is you would have to make sure that your address side, so you wouldn't want the decorative part to have your address on it. So you would put your address side, and then you could put the address on the back of the card. You could put a little sticker on here with the address if you wanted to, and then put your postage on the top. You wouldn't want to address it on the part that has the card because it would be a little bit difficult for them to see and deliver, but that is something that you are able to do. So what I thought is I could put all my little extra scraps, kind of so they don't get all mangled up in the stamps, because, you know, sometimes if they get stuck on this little sticky part, it will rip them. So you could do one of two things. You could either just set this in here because it will close, or if you wanted to and you don't have your magnets on the inside, you could put your little pouch with a little bit of adhesive. That way you could stick them in, or you could even go a step farther and stick it onto the back. That way you have your pieces. But I've just found with putting them in here and putting them together like that, it keeps all the pieces stored. So if I ever needed anything that was already pre-cut from this, hopefully it'll already be in there. So I figured that will be a little bit of a help. I do have a card pack picked out for this. And again, I think I'm going to change sentiment. So I thought what I would do is use the die cut Friend. And this is a pretty fun bundle. I'll say the only problem I have sometimes with this, and you know, I do try to be as honest as possible. Sometimes I find the way the words match up, I kind of wish they would almost nest together a little bit. So if you wanted to send something that said, I'm trying to think, what would you do with your sympathy? Maybe you could do love and sympathy, but with the happy and the birthday for this, just for example. So sometimes you kind of have to plan what you want to do. So you have your happy, and then if you have your birthday on here, and where is my birthday? Probably looking right at it right here. I almost wish that you could layer them up a little bit better so the pieces would line up. So you do have to put a little bit of thought into that. So if you had your happy and your birthday, you would kind of have to line them up differently. So that's why I actually ended up using the happy as the stamp and the birthday. This one was my first card that I made for this. So when I plan out cards, I'll usually make a first one. So this one could be a little bit straighter. So when we do our second one, we're going to try to line it up a little bit better. But what we're going to do is we're going to do Friend. And I wanted to do something with, I wanted to have something like Hello Friend. There we go. So we're going to use this Hello. Should have looked at the other side. Sorry about that. That's why I tried to do a couple tips in the beginning of this, because I know sometimes I get carried away with my tips and then I didn't have my stamp ready. So we're only going to be stamping this one little thing. And instead of using that other folder, you could also use the subtle folder. That's a really nice one. But I think I'm going to go with the Old World just to give a different texture to it. So we're only going to need the Hello. And I already got out my Friend. So everything else is already cut up in here. So what we're going to do is get out all of our supplies. So we do have a mint macaron base. So it is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. So that's already scored. And I kind of thought this would look like a really cool color combination because it's just varying shades of green. So we have mint macaron as our base, and then we have a piece of soft seafoam. This measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then all of our accent pieces are in shaded spruce. And the three of these colors really work nicely together. Now, the DSP that we're using for this particular one is also goes along with the Forever Greenery Suite. So I just picked 2 pieces. I don't know if these pieces even match up. Yep, there they do. And then I used 2 pieces from another side. So these, I did change the thing. I feel like they're 1 1/4. These are about 1 1/4. And I think this one's a teeny bit longer. I might have to trim that up just a smidge. And then the shaded spruce pieces are 1 1/2. So you're gonna see they're gonna fit on there, just like so. Okay, so we're gonna trim this up just a teeny bit. But the only other piece of advice I would have, and that is just from putting this together, is you want to make sure if you have a paper that's directional, that you have it going the correct direction. This just drives me crazy, the fact that one's going horizontal and the other one is vertical. So that was totally a whoopsie on my part when I laid them out. So when I will do this one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I cut both of these so they line up correctly so the curves are on the same side, okay? But to get started, I want to make sure these look like they're measuring. Yep. To get started, and I have 1, 2, 3. That one's not correct. 4. So there are 4 layers. Here's our 4 DSP layers. And then we're going to do one more thing with the die cutting, but I want to explain something to you first because we're going to try and do all that at the same time. To begin, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of figure out where we want to put our sentiment. And this is kind of why I say you might need to work with your sentiment to see how you want it to be. So if you have your friend and then you put hello, you kind of maybe would want it centered or kind of over here to the side. So I'm just eyeballing that first. I'm going to use my shaded spruce ink. So I'm going to just hope that this, I want to actually test this out just to be sure, because a couple of these, I think I might have put the stickers on a little crooked. Nope, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to ink this up, kind of decide where I want it. All right, so there's my hello. So that's really all you need for that. And then afterwards, we're going to run this through with the embossing folder, but I want to give that a moment to dry. So I'm going to set this on the side. And in the meantime, I want to show you one other thing. So if you have worked with our adhesive sheet before this, we used to carry Sizzix adhesive sheet, and it's a little bit different the way it's set up than what we have now. So I just wanted to share that with you. So what I'm going to actually end up doing is I'm going to cut this, and I'm not sure this is going to line up all the way on this. But I usually will kind of put this onto a scrap piece and I'll cut things out. So you can see I probably did 3 layers of Aloha and stack them together. Actually, I did that for my niece's birthday card. So even though this isn't necessarily lining up on the entire thing, I'm still going to cut it because it will even give us a middle layer. So this one I'm going to cut, but I want to show you with a piece that hasn't been done yet. So this is just a scrap piece of shaded spruce. And when you get the adhesive sheets, it comes like this. You get them in a pack. And this is the part where it is a little bit tricky if you used any other kind of adhesive sheet ever before. Typically with an adhesive sheet, this part that you peel back is the release paper. So you're peeling it back and you would stick your paper here. Well, our newer adhesive sheet is opposite for some reason. I'm not really quite sure why, but the adhesive is actually on these little strips here. So you do need to be a little bit more careful when you do that because of the way you're going to line it up. So to make it easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this. So if you were doing this entire piece here, so kind of just like so, even though you have this little strip here, what you're going to do is, and this is the way I found it to be easier, is you're going to pull your paper back, and this part has the sticky, so just be careful what you do with it. I'm going to pull these 3 back. So I'm just going to start with 2, and I'm going to set this right here at the end, and I'm kind of lining it up as closely as I can so it matches the corner there. And I'm going to let this go. Let both of those go, and I'm going to press them down, and then I'm going to pick this one up on the end and kind of fold over to press back. So now, except for this little teeny strip here, and I'm going to trim it so you can see what I mean, this entire piece is going to have adhesive on it minus this little strip. So I'm going to go ahead and take, because I will use this for something, so you can always save it. I'm just going to trim this little piece off, and I'm going to trim right down the side of this piece of shaded spruce, just like that. So now this entire piece, so this is a release paper, has adhesive sheet on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple birds with one stone. So I'm going to die cut friend. Now you could just do it one time if you wanted to. If you wanted to stick up, you can do it twice. So I'm going to do it twice. I'm also going to emboss this. Now that this is dry, I'm going to emboss this in this folder. So we're going to do that one first, because again, this is a die cutting, a 3D die cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this, move that to the side, and we're going to use our original platform. If you happen to have the platform that has the flaps, you want it open to the very base. So I'm going to run this one through the die cut machine, and then we'll do our dies. And I'm going to do this one twice because I want it to be just a little bit more stacked, also so I can show you how it works. So what you're going to do is just put your die on top. You can, if you're really concerned about conserving your paper, you can always stick a little scrap of double-sided tape on there, and I'm going to run this one through. The nice part about doing the adhesive sheet is it actually will pull all those little hole pieces out, and you don't really have to worry about having your paper piercer or your take your pick tool. Oops, that one got a little bit more pressed than I wanted it to be. It's okay. So this was a little stickier than I anticipated, but no big deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out because this one's fine. And I always tend to leave my dot in there, which is just really personal preference. It kind of depends. Now, since I'm doing this in 2 layers, I'm actually going to just roll over this spot because I don't really care what it looks like. I'll use this as the top one. So I'm going to stick this through. Okay. And like I said, this has like the layer of paper missing, but what we'll do is we'll put this one on the bottom. And you could layer this together several times because then you'll just have a raised sentiment, which does look pretty cool as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to put this together first. Then all we're going to do is just assemble our card. So I'm going to just remove the backing. And one thing, that little E didn't come out. Usually the cool part about this is that the dots or the inside of the word just adheres right to the sticky paper. So I'm going to take my other die cut. So this is my bottom layer that's not as pretty since it has a little bit of shedding because of the ink. Not the ink, because of the other adhesive tape. I'm just going to layer these two together. And I kind of lay them lightly. And then once I make sure I have them where I want them, then you could either press them with your finger, you could use your bone folder. So we have a thicker layer right there. Okay, then I'm going to just set this on the side for 1 moment, and we're going to go ahead and round these. So I have my corner rounder here. I'm just going to slide this in and press, so it's going to round the edges, and you want to round the 2 opposite edges. So now I'm going to put this in like that, and again, this is a little bit smaller, so that's the only reason I've kind of gone with a little bit bigger of a piece. So there's those 2. And then this one, I'm actually going to make sure that I put these in at the same time. So I want them both to have the same direction. So again, I'm just going to slide this in, kind of go them down to the bottom, and you can see where they've met the corner. And same on this side. So I'm just doing the opposite. Uh-oh, that one goofed up. I could feel it. Yep. I just missed just a little bit of the edge of this one. So, and I'm going to show you if you wanted to, because this is very thin DSP, you could also, if you still have your corner rounder, slide it in and get the edge of that. So it just kind of depends on which one you want to use. And then these are a little bit thicker. So for this one, I'm actually going to put these in one at a time. And I'm just doing the opposite, just 2 corners. These are all exactly the same just because they're just squares of shaded spruce. And these measure 1.5 inches square. So 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Just going to round all 4 of these. There we go. Move all this debris out of the way. Now, one other thing I left, this was just for this little butterfly die cut. So this Well Wishes, or I believe it's Well Written, the dies. They do come with lots of little extra pieces too. So you have these little flowers. They're like a stemmed flower, or stemmed leaf really, I guess. You have butterfly, you have flowers, you have a little bird. So you could die cut if you wanted to add a little something here just to the top like I did for that one. You can. It's up to you. And now what we're going to do is just put all of this together. So we have our base card. Let me just move my little scraps out of the way. We have our friend, and we just need my other layer, which has, oh, here we go, disappeared. So we have our little hello layer there, okay? So we're going to put these together, move these few things out of the way, and it's pretty simple from here, really. Now, this also is very dependent. So if you want this, so the way we did this was, if you have the Stampin' Up on the top, it actually debosses, so it pushes it down. If you wanted the hello to be raised, what you would want to do is just flip this over this way, and then you would have the raised size sticking out. So you can do it two different ways, which is kind of nice because you get two different, not really two different images, but two different ways to use it. But when you are using any type of a embossing folder, especially the 3D folders, you want to just make sure you add enough glue. I typically like to use liquid glue because I find it has a better stick. So I'm going to just take this, make sure my card's open correctly, and I kind of will press it down and move it around a little bit just so it spreads that glue all over. Make sure it's lined up pretty nicely and just give it a good press. All right, so there's that one. Pretty simple for that part. Now for this next one, I'm actually going to use mini glue dots. I'm going to use dimensionals. So I'm going to put one on the back of each of these. Now you could also put a dimensional on the designer series paper if you wanted to, but I think one is good enough because it also kind of depends on what you want to do with it. So one other thing, I'm going to go ahead and pull these off. And I typically will start with just one. So kind of put one down. Oops. And kind of line them up point to point. And if you're ever concerned with whether or not you might line them up correctly, the other thing you can do is put just a little dot of liquid glue on the back. That way you can move them if you needed to. So it kind of looks like a flower. And just try to get your spacing. It doesn't need to be perfect. Looks pretty good there. Just going to give them a press. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of liquid glue, and you could do this the other way. You could add your DSP before you put them down. Just depends on what you want to do. And I'm going to add those, and I'm just adding the opposite ones. That looks good. And I kind of like to put them down and wiggle them a little bit. Oh, that looks so much nicer because they're facing the same direction, because then you kind of find that you spread your glue out, so you'll have a better purchase of glue. Okay, so you have that. So again, this is a little bit bigger. If you wanted to go with the smaller squares, you absolutely could. What I did was, for these squares, they were 1 inch for the DSP and 1 1/4 for the shaded spruce layer. This one was 1 1/4 and 1 1/2. So then finally, I'm just going to take the backing off of the back of my adhesive sheet. Oh, and this one almost worked all the way. So normally you won't even have to use your paper piercer, but I'm going to just show you just for the heck of it, since this one decided to stick. But typically you'll notice that all of your little hole pieces will stick onto your adhesive sheet, which kind of makes it another nice way to use it. So I'm just going to push this opening through onto my finger. That way it'll stick there and I won't have to worry about it sticking to my card. And then I'm just going to kind of make sure my friend looks pretty well lined up. Okay, so just like that, looks pretty good. All right, now the only other thing you could do if you wanted to, and again, I said before, excuse me, that I tend to forget this. You could always pop out your eye because they do tend to stay in there. So if you wanted to pop out your little sticky eye, you could put that on there too. And I actually do end up having both of them because for some reason they don't tend to come out of the card. Well, for me anyway, they never seem to come out. This one still has its die cut on there. Just layer those together. There you go. Now one final thing that I did with this, only because, oh, this one, my little teeny thing is still stuck in there. I thought it came off, but it didn't. Luckily I didn't press it fully down yet. There we go. So the other thing that I tend to have done with this is when I have this little layer of it sticking up, I feel like it always needs maybe just a little bit of something. So I usually go over this layer just with my Wink of Stella pen, or if you don't happen to have this, you could use any type of a shimmer pen. But it kind of almost makes it look like it is embossed. If it's sparkly or it has a little bit of shine to the image. So I'm just going over just the raised letters. There you go. Super, super, super cute and really easy. And again, you could totally change this out and you could use the In Good Taste DSP would make a really nice card as well. I kind of think I like the Old World embossing map. Looks a little bit nicer. Something about it just looks really, really pretty. I really like it. Probably also because this one was my very first one and these two don't match and this is a little bit crooked. But, you know, you live and you learn and you make mistakes and then you fix them as you go along. That's the one good part because I did make this card ahead of time. So when I had my ladies come for club, I told them to make sure that they had everything lined up so it would look a little bit nicer than the trial version did. But I thank you guys so much for stopping in today. Let me know what you think of this card. Which one is your favorite? I will say I have had this stamp set for a really, really long time and I really like the design of it, but sometimes I struggle with just the layout of the words. So am I the only one that has that problem, or have you had that issue too? I know sometimes you'll get a stamp set and you'll really, really want to use it, but you'll find that for some reason the things don't line up exactly as you think they do, or sometimes you might have a hard time layering things together. So if you have a problem with that and you have a solution to it, I would love to hear it, because those are the things that sometimes I really want to use something, but I have a hard time just struggling to find out how to lay it out. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And again, if you'd like to get any of these projects, all you have to do is click in the description. That is where you'll always find the link to my blog post, the code for the shopping special this month, and also all the supplies used. And you can also find all of my social media contacts in there as well. Thank you guys very much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.